Welcome to a special weapons guide showcase for Spectrobes Beyond the Portals. Someone asked for it. Hold on, let me pull up the comments real quick. Brian Sanders, I believe, was the guy who asked for this. Well, not from us specifically, it was just asking if there were any videos like this, and I thought, hey, I'd do one for all three games, starting with this one because I had other stuff to do in it. So, in any case, let's start with the sword category. You have your basic, heat, spark, speed, and saber swords, all of which do the same exact thing. Okay, this basic and heat swords do a single attack. Spark through saber do 2 attacks. And generally have the highest attack power of all swords. So, if you're using those first two, you would just be able to attack like so. With the other 3 that I mentioned, you can do a double attack. I'm using this room with that thing right there to demonstrate the weapons because it's the best room to do so, since it counts as a battle room, but there are no actual enemies to get in the way of demonstrating. So, now let's move on to gloves. Actually, no, we haven't finished swords yet. Next up, you have these weird double energy swords. You have Plasma, Hyper, and Delta. The Plasma does 2 attacks, but the Hyper and Delta can do 3 attacks. These generally have less power than your basic models, but can attack more to make up for it. That's a full 3-hit combo right there. I like that little spin he does. It's kind of hard to get the camera to be positioned where you want it to be, you know, old DS games and all that. And lastly, before we move on from the sword category, there is the Omega and the Sigma. The Omega I don't know about, but the Sigma can do a double attack despite it not being in its description. The Omega... the Sigma does a double attack. The Omega rises a chance of getting EXP orbs. And it can only do a single attack. I personally think it's one of the coolest looking swords in the game. The Sigma sword is the one that I end up using the most. While it has weak attack power, it can do a double attack, and it raises the likelihood of crawl dropping recovery orbs, allowing me to get my health back, both for Rollin and his Spectrobes. Okay, now let's move on to the gloves. This is going to be really short. All gloves do the exact same thing. You pound the ground and a shockwave comes out. The range of the shockwave depends on the glove. You have your basic, grasp, grip, and power. That all look exactly the same. Some have more range, some have longer stunning periods. This one combines range and longer stunning period. Then you have your Hyper, Intense, Voltage, Okay, so hyper through voltage all look the same. What and how they function, well, that's in the description. And then you have delta, sigma, and omega. These give less defense than what I'm currently equipped with, but they stun enemies for an insanely long periods of time. I'll go and equip some and just show them off. All gloves do this. I guess I can show the different range. Whoops. Starting with the most range and working my way backwards. So there's that one. That was the sigma. Let's go for the delta. Then, going with this line backwards, got the voltage. Oh, that's a cool effect. I didn't know that that had an effect like that. I was just gonna write off the gloves and not really show all of them, but now I'm curious. Ah, everything from this line does that weird swirly effect. That's a pretty cool effect, I'm not gonna lie. I'm willing to bet this does the same thing. Yep, just a smaller radius. Might seem weird that I'm working backwards with these, but you're still going to get to see all of them. It's the best range of the basic glove. Well, the basic type of glove, I mean. And then the range is a little less on that one. But that has a longer stun period. I think this one has more range. Seems about the same to me. And of course, the dinky little pathetic thing you start with. There's that. And now we come to the main event, at least in my opinion, blasters. So you've got basic, ray, and photon, all which do the same thing, but just have different attack power. Photon is what I'm equipped with, so let's go and show that off. It fires a continuous burst. You can just hold down the button. You can move around. These shots also home in on enemies, which I can't really show right now, but you've seen it throughout the playthrough, the shots home in on enemies. Which is why I keep with that style of blaster and just go up from there. Then you have your hyper, your rupture. Hyper does 2 blasts at once, and rupture does 3 blasts. I'll show these off. These don't home in on enemies. They look cool, and I'm sure you can use them pretty effectively, but this weapon just isn't for me. I find it just hard to hit with. One weapon that might have been easier for me to hit with, though, is this one that fires out a 3 spread. Because at least it actually hits what I'm shooting at. It's just enemies move around so much that it's difficult to use this effectively. But there you go. There's this weapon. That was the Rupture. And now for the ones that fire the explosions. I'm not sure if there's any difference between these. I have a really hard time hitting with this weapon. It has a wide explosion radius, it's just I'm not very good at using it. Again, I'm better at using the basic blasters, which is why throughout the whole Let's Play, that's mostly all you really saw, other than me trying out one weapon. I think this has a longer range than the other one, though that probably doesn't help with my ability to use it. Let's see what this King of Exploding Blasters does. Again, just a longer radius. Nothing wrong with that. I do wish that they had, like, the homing missiles and whatnot from the first game. I think the first game had a bit more in the way of gun weapons. So does the third game. But at least in this game, all weapons, including swords, are actually useful. Last but not least, you got suits, which just do different things for your stats. I'm, of course, equipped with this solar that gives you the best stats, then there's the power. You've also got Corona, Aurora, and Flash suits that give you the properties of those elements. The only thing oh, and then there's S versions that give you slightly higher stats than these. The only thing is, I don't really see a need to equip Rollin with any kind of properties. So, yeah, that's basically all of the main equipment. There's also Geos, but you've seen them in the last game. If you haven't seen them, well, click on the card up there and go watch that. Anyways, this has been the Psycat, and this has been the weapons guide and showcase for the different Spectrobes to Beyond the Portals. Wow, I had to think of that name for a second. Weapons.